Hello, everyone. My name is Demita Chapman. I'm with Citizens for Excellence in Elected Leaders. This is the candidate forum. I want to thank everyone today for tuning in on social media. But first of all, before we go into, I want to thank the man of this house, Pastor Foster, for allowing this to take place. And so I give him all kudos. Thank you, Pastor Foster. And I thank Pastor Christina Chavis, Pastor Flint, and Bishop Lackey. And before I close to give it over to the pastor, I have to thank the man that stands by me when I'm doing this, and that's my husband, David Chapman, is with me tonight. So I have to acknowledge him. Thank you. I see a few elected officials in the House. Representative Derek Jackson, thank you for coming. Mayor Pro Temp Hattie Portis, Councilwoman Portis from Fairburn, Representative Medisha Thomas. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I'm going to turn this over to Pastor Foster.
Amen. Thank you so much. Before I give reflections tonight and before we open with prayer, I want to just do a little housekeeping. To my left, your right, the exit, in case you need to use the facilities, or through that door. Bear to the right, once you go through the fellowship hall, and you find all the restrooms. Amen. And if you are given the opportunity tonight to say anything, please be respectful, because it is the only way that we do things around here. Amen. Let's pray. Gracious God, our Father and our friend, we truly thank you for the opportunity to come together once again to really discuss the business of community, because you have told us that it is not good for us to be alone, to try and do things on our own. And so we come together with one purpose in mind, and that is community. We invoke your presence, and we thank you for being with us. Open our hearts, our minds, and our spirits, that everything that we say and do in this place will be pleasing to your sight and to your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Brothers and sisters, it gives me great pleasure to introduce one of my colleagues, Pastor Christine Chavis, to do the welcome.
Thank you, Pastor Foster. It is my esteemed privilege and honor to welcome all of you who are here in the sanctuary with us for this night. And we are excited about what we're going to hear from all the candidates. To all of you who are tuned in on social media, please share to your constituents, please share to your community members and leaders, and let them know that tonight is the night you want to plug in, ask your questions into the chat, and so we can get some feedback. Amen. Thank you all for being in attendance.
Thank you. And I'm going to do my mission statement. And my mission statement is standing up for the community, holding elected officials accountable. Thank you.
Good evening to everyone. We're so honored tonight to have a very powerful moderator who really needs no introduction. Kathy Adams' ability to lead was apparent early in her junior high school days, where she received a scholarship to represent Briarcliff High School, which is over in East Point, down here in the South Fulton corridor. And she was elected to represent that school as a Georgia Girls Program Ambassador at Middle Georgia College. Kathy has been serving the community for more than 30 years. She is the immediate past Southern Regional Director of the National Federation of Democratic Women, the two-term past president of the Georgia Federation of Democratic Women, and she is the former chair of Delta Airlines Information Technology and Career Council, a former trustee of the Atlanta Victim Assistance, and a former trustee and vice chair of the Carrie Steele Pitts Children's Home and a former Democratic Party of Georgia State Committee member. And she has just an entire page full of accolades that we could just read. And I had her laugh, and I told her, I said, oh, you're just so doggone important. And Kathy believes in broad-based community engagement and that the legislative process is critical to ensuring Georgia citizens will experience growth and positive change. She is a mother, she's a grandmother, she is family-focused, and she is an active member of the Cascade United Methodist Church. So I would like to introduce to some and present to others our moderator for the evening, none other than Miss Kathy Adams. Can we give her a hand as she comes?
My mistake. I got a little nervous, but we're going to bring up Pastor Flint to introduce someone. Thank you so much, Pastor Flint.
Good evening. It is my job to introduce our timekeeper. I'm going to be very polite, although he is a graduate of Turner High School in Atlanta. But he is a native born in the city of Atlanta. He serves on several different boards here in the area and has for 20-plus years served 20-plus years lived in the South Fulton community. He has been a champion for citizenhood or cityhood, and apparently we were successful in the second run for it. Again, Atlanta native, he is on the board of directors for Cliftondale Community Club, as well as the board of director for the South Fulton Parkway Alliance, and he is proudly a deacon at the Open Word Christian Ministry Church. And I will once again add that he likes that he graduated from Turner High School. So, ladies and gentlemen, our timekeeper this evening, Mr. Harold Reed. God bless you all.
Greetings, everyone. And again, my name is Kathy Adams, and I am the moderator for the evening. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you to all the candidates for gracing us with your presence this evening. And we certainly want to hear from you and hear what you're about, what you're going to do, and what you're going to be about. So stay tuned for all of that. And welcome to all of the guests that are in person this evening. But again, welcome to the South Fulton Candidates Forum, where each city council member has been invited. So we do want to extend that effort and share that with everyone to participate in this evening's forum. I want to go over some of the housekeeping rules with you of the forum and some of the rules, the guidelines. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for their opening statement. They'll be given 2 minutes for their closing statement. And the moderator will ask the candidates, I'll call on the candidates in the order that I choose, and I will also share with you the questions in random order. Now, each candidate will get the same number of questions. You may not get the same question. So you got to pay attention. And I'm not going to keep repeating the question over and over. You got to pay attention. So each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to respond to the questions. And if you talk beyond a minute and a half, I will interrupt you and ask you to stop. The timekeeper will display a colored card or what have you. You'll see the time on the countdown clock there. So do be mindful of that. At 30 seconds, you'll be notified to kind of reel it in and bring it home. We'll have questions that will come from the audience. Should you choose to send us questions via index card, they will be given to me. But then also we'll have our chat box open online to have questions come in as well. So I'll have someone feeding those questions to me this evening. And that is it. Again, remember that each candidate will have the same number of questions. You may not have the same question. And I do want to say to my audience again, welcome to the South Fulton Candidates Forum. This evening we are focusing on Districts 1 and Districts 5 of South Fulton. And in this year we have 3 candidates that are running, that have qualified to run for the District 1 seat, and 3 candidates that have qualified to run for the District 5 seat. And this evening we have 3 of those candidates, all 3 of the candidates for District 5, and then 1 of the candidates for District 1 that are participating in this evening's forum. And so just want to be mindful that, again, let's be mindful of the time, respect everyone's time. And each of these candidates is seeking to govern, create policy, manage budgets, and be a visionary in creating a long-term sustainable growth process for the city of South Fulton. But be mindful also that while they represent their district, they have a vote and a say-so in all of the legislation that takes place that comes before them for the city of South Fulton. Again, our timekeeper will sound the bell when the time is up. And tonight, I just want to say that I'm presenting this in a fair, nonpartisan setting. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, and we will introduce the candidates for the evening. I'm going to introduce the candidates by last name in alphabetical order by council district, starting with Council District 1. And we will go in that order. And again, as I introduce the candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statement. So we're going to start with the candidate for District 1, and that is Dr. Catherine Rowell.
Thank you for the opportunity. I've served on City Council for the last 6 years since the inception of the city. And since I've been in office, I've focused on quality development in the area, and beautification and cleanup of the area has been a priority, to include food and industrial, which is also a part of District 1. I've served with integrity. I've proven that through partnership and even working with council members that we've been able to do some great things and bring some great development in the area. I'm looking forward to today's conversation. Even though I'm the only one who showed up, I look forward to talking about our great city.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And so next we will move on to District 5. And in District 5, we're going to go again in alphabetical order by last name. So I'm going to call on candidate Keosha Bell. And Ms. Bell, if you will, please.
Good evening. My name is Keosha Bell, candidate for District 5 in the city of South Fulton. I am new to this, and I look forward to serving in the city of South Fulton. I have been an active resident and an active constituent, and already been doing the work in the city of South Fulton. With great pleasure, be a typical politician, but I believe in being altruistic, being selfless, and leading by any means necessary. Some of my platforms include senior care for our seasoned elite and disability care, focusing on public safety and making sure that we have violence protection for our residents as well as our youth. Also regaining the trust and transparency and ethics back into the city, as well as workforce development and economic development. I look forward to utilizing the skills and the experience and the hard work that I've been committed to serving already in the city of South Fulton. I've worked closely with many of our former council members as well as current council members to help pass legislations such as banning the box, the Crown Act, as well as decriminalizing cannabis. So I have done the work, and I look forward to serving the city of South Fulton.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to move on to Mr. Calvin Bennett.
Hello.
You want
My
to
name
swap?
is Calvin Bennett. Hello, my name is Calvin Bennett, District 5. And I'd like to thank Reverend Foster for having us here tonight. I appreciate it. I'm a longtime resident of South Fulton. I've been in District 5 for the past 12 years. I'm activist. You know, I've coached basketball for about 10 years and throughout our rec center. I ran in our inaugural elections, you know, for District 5 council person. When I lost that race, I got to working with the winner to help move our city forward, our district forward. Some of the things that I'm running on is integrity and accountability. Another thing that's dear to my heart is putting a precinct back on Old National Highway. We have 3 districts along that stretch, and we don't have any precincts, and I think that's something that we really, really need to address. I'm also interested in working on the blight that's still within our district. You know, Roosevelt Highway, railroad crossings, we're having accidents up the gazoo, trains stopping and stopping our residents from getting to and from work in a timely manner. I'm also interested in working on putting more money into our parks and recs. You know, I think that if we're going to start tackling gang violence and some of the issues we're having with our kids, we have to, in turn, give them something more to look forward to or something more to do. Parks, recs, training, and that type of thing. I'm also interested in doing some IGAs with our schools. You know, I think we need to make more use of our schools since in our district, we're limited with real estate as far as recreation and some of the programs that we want to see happen in our district. So I think we need to work closer with our schools. We got Banneker, we got Hapeville, we got a couple of middle schools, and we need to take advantage of that. Senior citizens, I'm a senior citizen, I'm a Vietnam era veteran. You know, I'm interested in creating or being a part of creating a housing authority. With all these investors coming into our community, we need to get a handle on our property so we could start creating.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next candidate is Corey Reeves.
Thank you, and thank you all for having us here. I really appreciate that. And I am Corey A. Reeves, and I am the incumbent. I currently hold the seat of District 5, and I'm glad that the candidates here decided to step into the race. But as you introduced the candidates by alphabetical order, the last shall be first. And let me just tell you what District 5 is the first in. And so we're the first ever to bring workforce, a trade force introductory through our Parks and Recs to the city of South Fulton. It's the first ever in the world that's happened, so we actually made world history. We actually expanded our territory by acquiring the land down at the field for Verde to increase our Parks and Recs facilities and to how we can have more recreation areas and the things that we do for our kids. And 3 years ago, I brought Friday Night Live to the city, which is a one-event, 5-part series, which led into the Midnight Basketball, a Ballin' with a Purpose. And what I call shared leadership is when you have mindsets collaborate, the mindsets come together, you have an award-winning outcome. And what that took place is what you're seeing now, and the effects of it and the impact that we are making and changing the trajectory of lives for our youth, for our millennials, and for our elders, and giving them an opportunity, because you can best believe wherever it's made, it's from a trade. I am Corey A. Reeves, and I would love to continue serving you. So on November the 7th, do choose the right candidate for District 5.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from all of the candidates that are here, that are vying for their candidacy to have a seat on the City Council for the City of South Fulton. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the questions for the evening. I do encourage our online viewers to send your questions via chat. We do have a chat box monitor who will feed those questions in, and so we will ask those questions of the candidates. And again, just as a reminder, you have a minute and a half to respond. And again, you'll have the same number of questions. You may not have the same question. So everybody listen in. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the first question. And the first question is, how do you avoid a few of the loud voices to drown out the silent majority on public policy, like zoning issues, as an example, in the city of South Fulton? And I'm going to pose that question to Mr. Bennett. Yes, I will. How do you void out a few of the loud voices to drown out the silent majority on public policy, like zoning issues, as an example?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question totally, Ms. Adams.
Well, how do you drown out how do you avoid a few of the loud voices? So you have few people, I guess, in the community that have loud voices and influence. How do you drown out those, that overshadow the silent majority on issues such as zoning, just for example?
Yeah. good question. Obviously, it's a good one. I had to go through it a couple of times. I think community activism, call to action, getting people involved. You know, one of the things that I think is a problem with voices being heard or not being heard is the lack of access to speaking about what's going on at our meetings, at our town council meetings. Like, for instance, we only could speak about what's on the agenda. That's one way, at least, to give people their little 2 minutes to come with, you know, issues that they're having at the time. The most important thing is to galvanize folks to work together, put together a solid, you know, response to the loud voices and present your side of the story. You know, because there's always going to be those few, you know, that's like you said, they're always going to be out there coming out with their opinions, and because they have the bully microphone, it seems as though what they say is the majority of the opinion. I just feel like if we just work with those people, work with our constituents, come together, come up with a plan and a response, a measured response, and push back against the loud voices, if I answered your question.
If you think you've answered it, that's good. Next question. Can you tell us how you would handle the voters' opinions? Councilman Reeves.
Well, how you would handle the voters' opinions is you would simply thank them for getting out there to vote. And so that's the one thing that voting is our greatest equalizer. So that is our greatest speaker, that is the greatest volume that any one constituent could do. And so whatever they choose and whoever they choose, you have to just engage them and thank them for being a part of the process, because they have a voice, they have an opinion, and they exercise it. And everybody has the right to exercise that. And on November the 7th, exercise that right to choose Corey A. Reeves.
Thank you very much. Next question. What policy do you suggest for ethics violations that would cause removal from office? Councilman Rowell.
The Georgia delegation, our South Fulton delegation, actually changed our charter to address ethics violations and formed panels of up to 3 resident lawyers to look at any ethics violations. So we currently have in our amended charter a means to address them. So there is a process now if a person feels that there's been some level of ethical violation to submit that complaint to the city clerk's office. There's a hearing that can be heard. And so while a lot of people are loud about issues or they throw allegations, I haven't seen those necessarily manifest in actual support documentation that there is an ethics violation. So we already have a process to do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. What suggestions do you have to make council meetings more productive and less hostile? Ms. Bell.
Thank you for that question. Well, for me, I stand on professionalism and decorum at all times. I believe there is a level and a standard as an elected official that you must possess. You must display that behavior not only out in the community, servicing our community and our constituents, but definitely in our council meetings. I am active at attending the council meetings, so I've been there many times for 5 and 6 hours, and I understand that there are a lot of policies, there are a lot of decisions, there are a lot of things that are held responsible and accountable by our city council. A lot of times we're not as, we don't make as much progress in our council meetings. And so for me, it's focusing on being an elected official, understanding what that is, understanding professionalism, understanding we talk about collaboration. Working together means respecting one another and displaying a spirit of excellence at all times, especially when you are amongst your constituents. Now, we can go back and forth silently, but I believe publicly we should always exude excellence and professionalism that will give us an opportunity to discuss the matters at hand, which is the business of the people, And if we focus on that goal, focus on what we have committed ourselves to be as representatives of city council and of our city, then we will do that, and we will stay focused during those meetings and make sure that we are progressing and moving forward with the decisions that need to be made.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question, how would you handle code violations throughout the city? And this question is for Mr. Bennett.
How would you handle code violations throughout the city? Basically, our code enforcement just have to do a better job, they have to do a better job at responding to code violations, being fair across the board. Violations for commercial property, should be just as you should be just as committed to handling commercial property as you do it with. I'm nervous. I'm not used to sitting in front of folks, but you should be just as astute at pursuing corrections of commercial property as you are with private property. I think when a person puts in a complaint or a code violation is spotted by one of our officers, there should be a process, a timed process, whether it's 5 days, 10 days, correct the problem. Like they do have policies in place as far as how, the time to respond to repair the issue at hand. But I just think that we just need to be more solid with the processes that we put in place when violations are cited.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the next question. Should the city pay for lawsuits caused by a council member's actions that causes a lawsuit and not the city council member? That question would be for Mr. Reeves.
That's a very interesting question. And so, because how do you differentiate one's actions in their current duties as versus one's actions outside of their official duties? Because when we're in meetings or when we are even out in the public representing city events, you are acting in your official capacity. And so that is a fine line that we have to take, and that is something that this DS really would have to get together and outline what causes that. Because at the end of the day, we are here serving in a capacity of official duties, and sometimes that there are what I call gray areas or fine lines. And so, but if anyone is not in their duty, then how do you distinguish that? Because every time you walk outside of your house, you're on the clock as a council member, and that's an absolute fact. Anywhere you go, you're on the clock as a council member. And but that is something that we would have to really look at and really have to get our legal mindsets in there to what is that fine line and to differentiate between official and unofficial duties.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next question. I'm going to circle back. And it says, how do you handle a few of the loud voices to drown out the silent majority on public policy, like zoning issues, for example? And that is for Councilwoman Rowell.
Thank you for the question. One of the things I do is I stay engaged with residents. I make it my business to attend key group meetings. For example, even though I don't represent Cliftonville, I will oftentimes attend their meetings, especially when we were during the pandemic and virtually. I attend a Sandtown Community Association meeting every month, and as well as I'm an advisory board member for the Cascade BMA. So that's my way to kind of stay in touch with the community. I often tell people, while we have a public comment period, if you really want to affect change, you need to do that outside of a meeting. Because at that point, we're kind of teed up. We've looked at the issue. If between us voting on an ordinance, for example, it's at least 30 to 45 days. If you heard it on the first read, then you need to reach out to the council person during that period of time. Zoning, and that pertains to zoning cases, so if you have an objection, that's the time to share your concerns before we get to the point where we're voting. But one of the things I do, I try to stay engaged. I tell everybody who wants to bring any kind of development to District 1, go to the Sandtown Community Association. And when I'm there, I talk less and I listen more to try to hear the concerns that residents have raised about a particular project. And oftentimes in that setting, I begin formulating the conditions that might need to be put on the project before we move forward. So that's been very helpful. It's worked well for the most part. And I think I have a strong relationship with the Sandtown Community Association. And there's consistently people attending. One of the things I think is a challenge for us is that not enough people attend the meetings where we're engaging in the zoning process. Many of the people who are in District 1 engaged in that process, they've been doing it for 20, 25, 30 years. So they're very versed in zoning law. They're pretty astute in that way. And so I really respect their opinions. So that's one of the ways we do it. And on the food and industrial side, I'm very engaged with the food and industrial CID to make sure I kind of stay abreast of the challenge. I've been on several advisory boards for them as they've looked at studies and planning for the future of the corridor. So that's one of the ways I kind of tune in zoning cases.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question. What actions will you take to address the millage rate in the city of South Fulton? And that question is for Ms. Bell.
Thank you for the question. So as I've recently heard regarding the millage rate and hearing from our most recent council meetings, I know that they are currently in the process of lowering and decreasing that rate. It has not been approved as of now, but for me, I will focus on what the residents want, what our constituents need, what their requests are, listening and talking less, but also making sure that I focus on the things that are going to benefit us entirely as a city, whether that affects individuals' personal gains, homes, the millage rate, everything. I think the residents have requested a decrease, and I will give credit to the council currently. They have actually taken that, and they're waiting for the approval on the current millage rate. So for me, I am in support with what the residents want, what the residents need, and what they request.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. What policy do you feel should be implemented to remove a mayor or council member from office? And that question is for Mr. Bennett.
A policy that I feel to be used to remove a mayor or council member from office. First, we look to the charter. You know, whatever the charter states is pretty much where we start. I think that to remove a mayor in particularly, I think should be removed through a revote. The city voted the mayor in. The city should vote a mayor out. As far as a council member, I think it's the same way. You should call for, I forget the process they call, a recall. You know, I think that's the most effective way. That's the voice of the people. You know, if you get the signatures to have somebody, the required signatures to have somebody removed, that should be the process. It shouldn't be council members voting to remove each other. It shouldn't be the council members voting to remove the mayor because they didn't vote the mayor in. So I just believe that whenever we're talking about taking something away from people, taking away their vote is really what we're doing when we remove someone. The people should make that decision.
Thank you. The next question. What suggestions do you have to make the council meetings more productive and less hostile? Mr. Reeves.
Well, one of the things is I do that because I do believe in collaboration. We get our agenda ahead of time. So what we try to do is, get all of our questions answered before the actual council meeting. Because to tell you the truth, when it comes to a council meeting, that the votes already, this negotiation going back and forth has already been done with council members. Plus, when you see 4 council members on the agenda on one particular item, that means that, it's a consensus. And usually it's unanimous. And so the time period to, as my colleague said, is when you have a first read, that's the time period to go through negotiations. That's the time period to engage in the conversations. I personally have a call with the community every single Monday from 6:30 to 7:30 in which we discuss these items, in which we go through it thoroughly. And the agenda of that call is the people's agenda. And we just, and when it comes to the council meetings, just being respectful and cordial, because behind the scenes, well, it's behind the scenes. And so when it's curtain call, we do have to responsibility to the constituency to exercise our decorum and professionalism at all times. But sometimes if we can get passionate about the things that we can we fight for and we work so hard to get and to gain. And so when we go through a policy process and procedures, and then those are kind of ignored, sometimes that you just have to just fight for what is right for the people. And it's okay to be passionate every once in a while, and so, but to be cordial and maintain professionalism is something that we definitely do, and we do have an award-winning team, a championship team currently on this dais.
Thank you very much. So the next question, should the city pay for lawsuits caused by council members, their actions, and let's say that causes lawsuits, and not the council members' actions? And that would be for Ms. Bell.
Repeat that question.
Should the city pay for lawsuits caused by a council member's actions that causes a lawsuit and not the council member?
I believe when you take oath and you accept this and commit it to this position, at all times you are a council person. At all times you are held to a higher standard to represent our city the best ability, to be professional, to display decorum, to do exactly what you set in place and proposed to do when you were elected as an official. So I believe whether you are having a lawsuit in your everyday lives, whatever the situation is, I would say you want to hold them up to a higher standard, and you want to make sure that accountability is on the city. Your actions speak louder than words, and at the end of the day, you are still an elected official. There is no separation. As the panel mentioned, when you leave out of your house, you are a council person. You are an elected official. You are someone that is supposed to uphold integrity, accountability. You are supposed to be a leader. And so your actions represent the city as a whole. So whatever you do personally affects us as a whole, as residents and constituents. And so I believe if it comes to a lawsuit, again, whatever the charter states, whatever the rules and the policies are, as it pertains to that, yes, we should have responsibility because we are responsible for our actions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question. What would be your proposal to handle future development of big box warehouses in the residential areas? Councilmember Rowell.
We already have a future land use that really speaks to the development that comes to any one area. A lot of people assume that any kind of development can go anywhere. That is not the case. The most important thing you can understand about zoning, whatever the coding says on that future land use says what's allowed in the future. That means if a person comes and petitions the city and they say they want to bring a particular project, if it's not compatible with that future land use map, the answer should be no. And so that goes back to the community being involved in the process when we're developing updating the comprehensive plan and the future land use to make sure that, you know, you have it coded, whether it's suburban, commercial, industrial. I know I've heard a lot of feedback from the community concerned that, you know, warehouses are going to come in places that they wouldn't be allowed per our ordinances. So I think we have to do more education with our public so they understand a lot of the threats they believe are not real because they're inconsistent with our laws. And again, a lot of the projects that people have kind of pointed to the city are not in our jurisdiction. So, for example, as it relates to industrial projects, there are certain areas in our city that are earmarked for that. That includes Fulton Industrial, Oakley Industrial, but that was what it's always meant to be. So in terms of encroaching beyond that in a residential area, that is not as real a thought as people seem to believe and often put out. So understand the future land use is critically important.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question is, how will you handle the crime rate in the city of South Fulton? This question is for Mr. Bell. I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett. I'm sorry. My apologies.
One of the things that I'm experiencing through knocking on doors and just living in District 5 and moving around the district on a regular basis is that we hardly see police officers or get them when we need them. We make a call. If they come out, it may be 40 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour, and sometimes they don't even come out, you know. And this has been going on for some time, and it's just not to our district. That's throughout all 7 districts, I would think. It's throughout the country. We're having a problem with police response times in our communities. One of the things that I would recommend or would like to see more of are cameras. And I understand that technology and cameras in particular, you know, folks are having a problem with privacy. Something, it's a privacy violation, but I feel like if you're in public, how could it be private? You know, and I'd rather a camera catch a license plate to someone that just broke into somebody's home, at least to give the police, you know, a clue or some sort of evidence, you know, to help solve a crime. You know, so I think that technology will play a big, big part in fighting crime.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Reeves, what actions will you take to address the millage rate in the city of South Fulton?
Well, the actions that we have already taken is we have a 0.5% millage rate rollback. And so I would have advocated for 0.15. And so, because we do have, you know, financial needs that the constituents need to have, but we also have things that we do need in the city. And so, like a city hall, a police headquarters, which is coming to Highway 279, aka Old National Highway and 138, and a fire station headquarters, which is coming to Cascade Palmetto. We have already bought the land. We have already got the acreage. We have already got the renderings. And if you look into the budget that we currently have, we have took that allocation out there to pay for those. And so these are underway. And, you know, as a mentor told me of mine, it says, I'll put a police car in every driveway if you're willing to pay for it. And so these are the facts that are absolute. And so one of the things that we have to understand is this. Is it a cost that we're paying for it, or is it an investment that we want for a better return on our investment in the future? So we have to look at it in the manner of what do you want? What do you want to see? We want to see more officers. We want to see everything else that we want to have. But are you willing to make the investment in that? And so, and if you're willing to make the investment, I guarantee you, you'll get the greatest return on your investment. And it takes time. You know, it's one of those not penny stocks, but you want to invest in some blue chip stocks. So you look at it for the long-term investment and not the short-term gain.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question, Ms. Bell. What would be your proposal to handle the future development of big box warehouses in residential areas?
Thank you for that question. As you know, we have certain policies, certain charters, certain rules that have to be followed. We also have zoning. And so, as mentioned briefly, we have certain areas that are specifically zoned for big box warehouses. And for me, focusing on economic development and workforce development, it also creates employment opportunities. It gives people an opportunity to obtain employment right within their city. However, as a resident in the city of South Fulton, I definitely don't want to hear a warehouse in my backyard. And so I understand the protection. I understand that we want to provide a better quality of life for our residents, and we cannot have those large warehouses just popping up in everyone's backyard on each and every corner. There are other businesses, there are other economic development opportunities and other organizations and businesses that we can bring in our city. That's not just a warehouse. And I think a lot of times we have to understand that there are going to be industrial areas, there are going to be commercial areas, and we also have to protect our residential areas. But for me, thinking about long-term investments, thinking about the people in our city. It's important that we also be able to give them employment opportunities. So work closely with those new warehouses or proposed warehouses that may be coming in to our city. Let's make sure that they're following the code and the zoning requirements and restrictions that are already written. And so we have to really just focus on making a better quality of life. Again, I am focused on the people. I am focused on the residents. I've been doing the work, so I'm out here talking to a lot of the constituents on a consistent basis. And I hear their concerns, and no one wants a warehouse in their backyard. No one wants a warehouse down the street.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next question. And this question is for Councilwoman Rao. What suggestions do you have to make council meetings more productive and less hostile?
Thank you for the question. I actually introduced the decorum ordinance for the city of South Fulton. That decorum ordinance really speaks to the presiding officer or the mayor enforcing decorum. That's what you do in most organizations, especially because that position is not the voting position. They really act as the parliamentarian and keep things on task. So we have an ordinance in place. It has to be enforced by the mayor as stipulated in the decorum ordinance. That was one of the things I did to want to address decorum. And so leaders need to implement what's on the books.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What economic development plan would you propose to bring sit-down family dining restaurants and white linen restaurants to the city of South Fulton? And this question is going to be for Councilman Reeves.
Thank you for the question. Absolutely. And so what will we do to bring economic development and more sit-down restaurants to the city of South Fulton? Ladies and gentlemen, I have to stand up for this here. And so because I'm just going to tell you, as this is what I am excited about, many people talk about workforce development. That is great. I believe in trade force development. And what that is because we know job is an acronym for just over broke. But when you give somebody the opportunity to have a career, you give them the earning potential on a higher earning potential than what they have. And then when you look at that household medium income and what restaurants and those restaurateurs and entrepreneurs look at to come to, that's one of the key aspects that they have. And what we have is when you give people the earning potential, you give them a higher disposable income. And so that is what's going to attract those restaurants. And quite frankly, I'm not looking for those big box name restaurants. I'm looking for the mom and pop, the chefs here, and giving them the opportunity to open up their restaurant. Because before, Longhorn started in a hotel lobby, okay? And look at what it became today. And then featured on to Ted's Montana Grill. So get this, if we have local chefs here, local opportunities, we have 18 farms and then some growing, what I call the Garden of Edens. And yet we have not one farm-to-table restaurant here in the city of South Fulton. Why not give the chef or the local person who wants that opportunity and give them the tax breaks? If they live here and decide to put a restaurant here, what's wrong with giving them a 5-year tax break and incentive to open up a restaurant? What's wrong with investing in what we already have currently? Because I believe if you want change, you have to first start within, because that's where it is first. And I'm great and I'm proud to bring a world-class opportunity to our youth, millennials, and elders and offer them a trade, because you best believe when it's made, it's from a trade. I am Corey A. Reeves.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. This is for Ms. Bell. How will you handle the crime rate in the city of South Fulton?
Thank you for that question. As we know, it's a major concern, especially being in District 5. And so some things that I've already been working on for the past couple of years is really collaborating with our police department. We recently had a meeting a few weeks ago with a lot of the small business owners that are within District 5 community and District 7 to address the break-ins, to address different issues and situations that they have been occurring in their businesses. And so one thing is collaboration. We want to collaborate. We want to work together with everyone. And one thing that I've already taken the initiative of doing is developing those opportunities directly with our police department, speaking with those lieutenants, speaking with those sergeants, even having the opportunity to speak with Chief Meadows. I've spoken with them about task force, how we can involve even our schools to start something in implementing that at a younger age, not just waiting until they're at the age now where they're breaking in and robbing my mother who's a senior, but making sure that we provide opportunities for them, making sure that we educate our community as far as response times. We want to increase that. We want to make sure that we have better police presence right in our city. We've had many issues just in the past few weeks with the crime rate increasing in a well-known area in District 5. And so we have to start addressing the things as they happen, not waiting until things build up, but let's find a solution now. And even without a platform, I've taken that initiative of doing the work, working closely with our public safety department to create ways of educating our youth, working solely with our youth, making sure that we can provide opportunities for us as residents so that we understand the process of when you call 911, the process of when someone is actually going to be able to show up at your house, focusing on the beat study.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next question is for Councilwoman Rao. How would you handle the code violations throughout the city?
One of the things, I think our staff do a pretty good job on code enforcement. I think there's opportunities, again, making yourself accessible to your residents. I get a lot of calls. If in my area, I would say that constituents are very astute, and if they see things they don't like, they don't have any problem texting, calling, or emailing. And I have periodically had meetings with our code enforcement staff to make sure that they're kind of on it. So one of the things, I'm like, how many cases do you have in District 1? I just kind of spot check based on things I just see riding around. I found that to be very effective. And most of the times, and I'm saying like 90% of the time, they have an active case. It may be somewhere in the process, whether it's gone to code board. One of the things we find challenging, sometimes locating these property owners can result in a delay in addressing a code violation. Some of those property owners are out of state. Everybody knows Atlanta's in metro area has been kind of ground zero for investors, so kind of pursuing them has been challenging at times, and so that's a process. But overall, like I said, when I check in on properties that I see when I'm moving around my district as it relates to code violations, when I kind of check in, they're like, we already have something on it. And so that speaks to the fact that they're doing the work. I also know one of the areas we need to focus on is people who may have code violations who may not have the means to pay for the improvements or to fix it. We know that's an ongoing issue, especially for, people who may have modest means. Everybody knows a repair on a house can be significant. So one of the things I do hope as we look at our CDBG funding for future years that we do something.
Thank you very much. The next question is for Mr. Bennett. What would be your proposal to handle future development of big box warehouses in residential areas?
Well, just like it was said earlier, we have the 5-year plans, future use plans. We have code, or this word, excuse me. We already have residential, having a brain freeze. When it comes to zoning, we already have the 5-year plan or future land use, as Councilwoman Rao pointed out. Basically, we have to work around that. Whatever it states, that's what it is. I think one of the things, like what's going on Buffington Road, when it comes to warehouse, they're widening our roads. That's something that probably should have been considered when they moved those warehouses along Buffington Road and put them alongside subdivisions. So I think that as we move forward, we just have to be more considerate of residents, the proximity of residents, the warehouses, and the traffic, problems that it would cause, the traffic delays.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question is for Ms. Bell. What economic development plan do you have to bring sit-down family-style dining restaurants and white linen restaurants to the city of South Fulton?
Well, as a personal entrepreneur and small business owner of many businesses, one thing that I believe in doing is collaborating with existing businesses. I'm a supporter of many of the staple restaurants and businesses within the city of South Fulton, and I've had these conversations in the past and most recently about expansion. We want to retain the businesses that we love and cherish within our own community. However, there's opportunities for them to expand. There are two restaurants in particular, Grown Folks and 50-Yard Line, and I've had an opportunity to speak with that owner about some expanding opportunities to create a different morale and a different marketing for that particular restaurant that resides right in the main area on Old National. And so for me, it's really focusing on speaking with those small business owners, focusing on those entrepreneurs who already are chefs. I work with several chefs. I work in the entertainment field. And so I have had an opportunity to work with a lot of individuals within our city who want to expand, who want to grow, and some who want to start new businesses. And so we need those sit-down restaurants. We want to go where we have fine dining, where we can have an opportunity to have not only date nights or anniversaries, but also an opportunity for the families to be able to dine together. So those things, again, are already in the works. As your new councilwoman, that's one of my initiatives, is really focusing on the businesses that are currently existing and attract new businesses. I've spoken with new business owners. I've spoken with owners of those chain restaurants as well as the small mom and pop. Let's continue to grow our businesses and make the city of South Fulton a better place to entertain.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question, this is for Councilman Reeves. Share your proposed transportation plan to alleviate some of the traffic congestion throughout the entire city.
Thank you for that question, Dr. Adams. I really appreciate it, because when it comes to transportation, we all know you want to be somewhere, you got to get somewhere. And what we do have is a lot of congestion coming down here to the south side, because particularly through Highway 279, which is a corridor through 3 other major cities, when you're going down to Peachtree City, when you're going down to Fayetteville, and when you're coming out of Riverdale and coming up to Union City. And so one of the things is we have engaged MARTA to come with the BRT, as currently their plan is to come down south of Old National, come to Gobby Road, and go left. And we need the BRT to come down to Gobby Road, go left, and to keep straight, because the highest ridership that exists in the area is from the Gobby Road intersection to the Highway 138 intersection. And so look at all that in between. And another thing is too, with transportation, particularly in T-spots, come sidewalks. We have to get those existing sidewalks up and going, not just on Old Highway 279, but also along Flat Shoals and connecting the two cities. We want to be a connector. And so transportation is one of those ways that we can connect the local to the greater good for the city and throughout all municipalities and throughout the entire state. And so particularly when you got to deal with the congestion coming down South Fulton Parkway. And so I would like to see a heavy rail coming down the middle. And so giving us something unique, because as we do know that we share boundaries with other cities and industrial areas, and their workerships and is increasing, the ridership is increasing, but the lack of transportation is decreasing. And so we need to have that, because to reduce the accidents and also to provide people with an opportunity economically as well. So, and that's one of the things, is to engage MARTA and the ARC to come up with a collaborative situation and a solution for our riders.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is for Councilwoman Rao. Would you commit to serve a full term and not run for any other office until your term ends?
I won't commit to that. It depends. My priority is to make sure we continue to move our city forward. I think we've made some great strides, but we are still a very young city. And we don't know what the possibilities might be for the future. I won't rule anything out, but right now I'm focused on this District 1 seat. and I'm looking forward to continuing to advance the city.
Thank you. Absolutely. So let's not use acronyms. Let's just kind of use the term, what it represents. Thank you so much. So the next question is for Mr. Bennett. How would you engage with communities?
How will I engage with communities?
Yes.
Just as I engaged today, meetings, events, social events, political events, online. There's many ways you can engage. But one of the things that I would like to do is pretty much have something on a regular basis where people could come, and just talk about issues or, where they would like to see the district go. Always have an open door policy, where you could come, and talk to me or address your concerns or what you would like to see happen in the city. But I think more than anything, I think getting people together, and coming up with consensus is one of the better ways of trying to, really understand what your community wants.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is for Mr. Reeves, Councilman Reeves. Why do you think city employees have recently left their positions?
Because they started off in the greatest city in the world, which is the city of South Fulton. They have done excellent work in their field, and they're recruited out at a higher rate. And so that's just a fact. And that's one of the reasons why that, I thank the mayor for introducing out there and coming in with the $20 minimum wage. And we all agreed upon that. And so because that's for higher retention, I thank this DIAS for approving for our chief of police to give incentive pay to our young officers. I thank the chief of fire for getting started the youth engagement program that's getting ready to start at Westlake, the Young Recruit Candidate Program, and then they offer bonuses to come in. So this DIAS has already brought championships in that manner for the retention, for let me say this, the hiring, the training, and the retention of our young millennial people who want to go into public safety and who want to come work into the city, and for retaining them at a rate in which they want to stay and that they can't get recruited out. And one of the good things that we're offering about in our trade force is, because imagine if our staff gets that training and our maintenance gets that training, is not just having a job, but also having a trade in electrician, becoming a certified electrician, a certified plumber. Do y'all know what infrastructure is? It's a big plumbing job. And so our fiber optic installation, which brings along the technology and the cameras and everything else that we require around the city. And so I'm just, happy that we have the people who are willing to stay because they now can afford to stay within the city. And so we just need to continue that, and we will continue that as long as you vote Corey Reeves, November the 7th.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question, this is for Ms. Bell. What policy do you suggest for ethics violations that would be cause for removal from office?
Well, one thing I would want to do, and I appreciate the question, is review the charter. Make sure that the rules, certain rules, are listed in that charter. Make sure that we all, as city council members, understand the rules of the charter, understand the rules of being an elected official. And so for me personally, I would really just, focus on that. Let's see what we have in place, and if you violate those policies, you violate those rules, let's dismiss you. And let's us be able to have the voice of the people Because again, we want to make sure that the person that we are electing and voting on November the 7th for, Keosha Bell, we want to make sure that we are following the rules, the guidelines, the policies, the procedures, and the charter. But we have to make sure that we're all cohesive in understanding and agreeing with what's set forth in that charter. And so I think that some things need to be reviewed. I would definitely be calling for a full review of every policy, every procedure, the charter itself, and making sure that we understand it, that we understand the oaths that we have taken, and understand what that entails. There are rules and policies and procedures for everyone, and there's also consequences. And so one thing I would do is focus on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is for Councilwoman Rao. What actions will you take to address the millage rate?
As we've already stated, we actually rolled back the millage rate against the recommendation of the city manager. I don't know if people knew that. One of the things Councilman Reeves really talked about is the city having a number of needs. And while they want to roll back the millage rate, you also had a constant request for services. So people are not asking for the same level of services we had when we were unincorporated. They're asking for more. So, whether that be, sidewalks, or whether it's the fact that they want us to improve our parks, all of that costs money. And I think everybody knows since the pandemic, all prices are up. So that was a challenge, but we still listened to the community when we came in to the public hearing process and decided to roll that back. One of the things that I also think is very important is that we continue to educate the public because, and I'll say the wisdom of our South Fulton delegation, they passed a couple years ago a cap where the valuations on your house couldn't go up more than 3% in 1 year. The city actually, as the city manager outlined, we forego $32 million a year already as a result of that. So it was a big step for us to go back and roll it back in addition to that, because we have to look at the whole picture. We're moving forward. We know we have various studies that say we need more fire stations. We know we need to do the courthouse and the public safety, all of that. So we have to take all that in consideration. But even with that, the council did say that, we understand this is a tough time for people, and we rolled it back. So I think that's the balancing act that we're often faced with, that maybe the public doesn't realize that we're trying to weigh all options and everything that needs to be done, as well as increasing the wages for our employees who said they could not afford to live in our city.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this next question is for Mr. Bennett. What is your opinion, and what proposal do you have to bring office buildings, administrative office buildings, instead of warehouses and restaurants, to the city of South Fulton?
What is my opinions?
Your opinion or your proposal?
That's a tricky question. Not from you. It's tricky in the sense that times are changing. In the brick and mortar model, it's pretty much on the decrease, on the decline. So when you talk about bringing in administrative buildings and that type of thing, you have to talk about what type of industries are still using, need brick and mortar. Like, for instance, a question was raised before about what will we do about all the empty buildings or all the empty storefronts at the Walmart Plaza, Town Plaza on Old National, and they're still empty. And I imagine they're having a hard time finding people that's looking for brick and mortar. So I think one of the first things we have to ask ourselves is, what is the vision for that area, and what businesses still require brick and mortar, and approach it from that aspect.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is for Councilwoman Rao. Can you tell us how you would handle the voters' opinions?
I do it every day. I have an open door policy. As I've mentioned, I regularly get texts, phone calls. One of the things I've done since I've been in office is to hold quarterly town hall meetings. That's the opportunity where we'll have maybe a couple speakers to talk about key issues in the area, but also, we have question and answers, and so that's a way to stay in touch with voters about the issues that are most pressing to them. I often work alongside my residents on projects. Perfect example, I had a group of residents come to me who were interested in having sewer in their area, and sewer is a function of Fulton County government, but since residents brought it to me, I hosted a town hall with the commissioner, Commissioner Khadija Abdul Rahman, and we were able to team up and work together. So one, that citizens understood what the process was to bring sewer to their area, and they understood they needed a neighborhood champion, explain the cost with it. And over about a 3-month period, a group of citizens got together and said, hey, we want sewer. These are areas that have not had sewer. They're on septic. They've been that way for the last 40 years. And now that project is moving forward. So I think it's really important to listen to community and figure out how you can engage them. I think that's important to build a succession plan for community leaders, because one of the things about these seats in the city of South Fulton is we have term limits. So we need people to really understand how our government works. So when they're ready, they can step up or they can engage. So I think that's really important. And again, I attend a lot of community meetings and a lot of HOA meetings to stay in touch.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. So the next question is for Councilman Reeves. How will you handle the crime rate in the city of South Fulton?
How will I handle the crime rate in the city of South Fulton? Thank you for that question. As one of the things is, I don't run from issues, I run to them. And right now, District 5 has the highest crime rate. And what we do have is we have a murderous spirit in the atmosphere. But let me offer some correction to the public on what they see, particularly at one location that is a center point of a corridor the city could not exist without. And that's the condominium complex. We don't have to go by the name of it, but we do know that there has been 7 murders out there. But let me just say this, some of those murders out there have been self-defense, and some have been retaliation from them murdering other people in other cities. And so when we get those facts, but we do look at that, how that situation is, we do look at affordable housing issues, we do look at that particular location being one of the center points that having the highest crime, but it's very centralized. And the things that we have done is implemented technology, we implemented cameras, and we got together with the police and our public safety officials and code enforcement. And we have already begun the action, not just action taken upon them, but also getting inside of that community, engaging with that community, and talking about the relative solutions, as we will have an upcoming meeting with them on Monday. Matter of fact, it was going to be to this evening, but this was a dual schedule, and I did promise that I would be here today. And so, but however, we're engaged inside of the community, and we're working within that community to protect that community and give the future of that complex into the hands of the people in that complex, particularly the owner-occupiers, because we will not displace anybody, but we will have somewhere for everyone to go and reducing crime.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is for Ms. Bell. And how would you handle the code violations throughout the city?
Thank you for that question. So with the code violations, I want to work solely with the code enforcement. We want to make sure that we are truly providing a better quality of life, that we are following particular guidelines for HOAs, for our businesses within the city, making sure that we are following the code of conduct, making sure that things are taking place and doing what we need to do in excellence. Working solely with code enforcement to make sure that we cite the findings, that we cite those individuals that may be violating the code, You know, we have a policy, and as an elected official, our job is to enforce policies. Our job is to make sure that we're creating a safer environment, we're providing a better quality of life, and so you want to collaborate with code enforcement. We want to make sure that we understand what the codes are. So educating our residents in our community about what code enforcement does, what the code violations may be. So we have to start with the basics on a lot of things. A lot of things are not communicated properly. Things are miscommunicated by, your social media platforms, which is not real information. And so it's our duty to make sure that the residents understand what the code violations are, but also making sure that we work with the appropriate parties to enforce those codes, cite what needs to be cited, and then we can move forward in excellence.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is, this is for Mr. Bennett. What actions will you take to address the millage rate in the city of South Fulton?
When the council presented the case to leave the millage rate the same, a lot of residents, felt it was an increase, because of the effect. Property values go up, so if you leave the millage rate the same, in essence, you're still going to pay more. And they responded to the demand or the cry from the residents or from the constituents to lower the millage rate, and although for some of us, an increase or sustaining the millage rate was no financial burden, we also have to consider those who it will be a financial burden. Now, I don't care if it's $4 or $5 a month. When people are on a fixed income, that's exactly what it is. It's a fixed income. And if $4 or $5 a month is the difference between you having a couple of extra meals for that month, that's a blessing for you. So I think that we should always just be mindful of the overall effects of our decisions as far as millage rates. But whenever we can, if our constituents want a cut and we're able to do it, we need to do what our constituents ask.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is, what will the candidates do to work in a unified manner on the council to end the fighting and the finger pointing during the council meetings since we become a city? And that question is for Councilwoman Rao.
Thank you for the question. I think I'm agrees with something I heard earlier. At the end of the day, we should always conduct ourselves in a professional manner. One of the things the charter doesn't talk about is it doesn't address those kind of issues, right? At the end of the day, that's an issue for voters to decide if they don't like how they're being represented. I say that, but I will say one of the things I do, and several of the members do, pick up the phone outside the meeting and get understanding of where people stand on issues. So that requires communication, and that's not in a meeting. You'll know some council members don't say a whole lot. I've already talked my issue through before I got there. I think more preparation on the front end, asking questions of staff, because sometimes that questioning in a public forum can be intimidating even for our staff. So I think we have to be mindful of those things. It's nothing wrong with getting your answers addressed by the city manager and the staff prior to. I think we could work more on that, and I think that will help with some of that. But, personalities will be what they are, and the voters get to decide if they like how they're being represented.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is for Councilman Reeves. What's your opinion on the trash service that was recently implemented for those that are on fixed incomes and renters?
Thank you for that question. What do I think about the trash service? Well, when I came in, day one, the two things that you use daily and cannot afford to live without is water and sanitation. And we must own those. But establishing the trash or the sanitation service gives the city every metric that you could have. And personally, as I had great influence on the design of the trash cans, or what I call Herbie Kirby's, because we had to have a unique identifier on our technical boundaries of the city of South Fulton. Because when we had neighbors living across the street from each other, but in two different municipalities, they didn't understand that. But also, one of the things we had to address is when we have neighbors living side by side of each other with the same exact trash service and two different bills, that is something that we could not accept. And so what we got on is with something that was uniform, and we negotiated. We knew that it was going to face some bumps and bruises, but we negotiated a fair deal for everybody to have. And for those who own fixed incomes and renters, we gave them, through our ARPA funds, a tax relief of, a first-time service, and they can still go out and fill this out today. But it's soon closing. It closed? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it closed, but the opportunity was there, and it was open. And so we are open for business and open to protect our seniors and protect our fixed income and protect our renters. And I stand behind our sanitation, even through the bumps and the bruises. Before anything was paved, it was first crush and run. And so you have to go through those. It's a process. And so I'm willing to stand behind our process, and I'm glad that we was able to help our fixed income and seniors.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I have another question that's come in. It said, are there plans to reduce large trucks driving constantly through our communities, damaging our sidewalks, particularly in the Cascade-Palmetto Highway area and Campbellton Road? And that question is for Ms. Bell.
Thank you for that question.
Speak into the microphone. They're having problems here.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm still hoarse. But thank you for that question. One thing it is I will be a representative of District 5. However, my duty is to serve the entire city. And so as it comes with the Palmetto, Cascade area, larger trucks, we have to enforce. If that is an issue, there are signs that are already listed in other municipalities that I've seen that addresses large trucks. I've seen that signage on Buffington Road that addresses those large trucks. And we have a program that is already implemented and working called See, Fix, Click. We need to make sure that we're utilizing that. We need to make sure that we're contacting our local council person that represents that area. Let them know your concerns and your issues. Now, being a representative of the city holistically, my job is to make sure that we address that issue. So if that means setting certain rules and guidelines to make sure that there's no passing through that area, or making sure that we have more visible police presence in that area, we want to address it and address that issue right when it takes place. So I thank the question, I thank the resident for that question, but that's something that we have to look into. I'm not too familiar with that, but I appreciate that being addressed and brought to our attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is, what would be your proposal to handle future development of big box warehouses in residential areas? And that question is for Councilman Reeves.
Thank you for that question. And so as we look forward to handling big box trucks into our communities, as one of the things is we are already actively seeking space out there for our manufacturing facility. And we'll not use the 18-wheeler trucks, but we'll use box trucks. And then we're working with the people who have brought in the warehouses with the 18-wheelers to get to their vehicles being clean energy and clean air. And so as we have a bike ride for clean air to come up, and so we want to make sure that they're using the latest technology to reduce the amount of pollutants that they're coming into air from diesel emissions. And so this is something that we're actively engaging. And we're not waiting around. We're already engaging to our big box stores that's currently located, that's not in the city of South Fulton, but in our boundaries of other areas, which every city has a right to have an industrial area. Every city has a right to have economic path forward in that manner. But we do have a responsibility to Mother Earth. And so me being an environmentalist, I'm very passionate about that, and I'm very passionate about reducing those emissions and what we can do as a collective. And so it's going to take that to get on board, and it's going to take, you know, our mindsets and wrap ourselves around this collectively as municipalities and what we can do for those big box locations. And I do want to just take a moment of privilege to thank our illustrious mayor, Mayor Khalid, who came into the building, and so I do want to acknowledge him that he is here. Thank you, sir, for coming. And but we look forward, and as you vote on November the 7th for Corey A. Reeves, you're going to best believe you're going to get somebody, you're going to keep believing, you're going to have somebody who's committed to the process and working together and working for the solutions to the issues that we already face and working to bring more solutions than we already have into making world history, as we're going to continue to do that, because we are the city of South Fulton, and I am Corey A. Reeves, and I love this city.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question is for Councilwoman Rao. In your opinion, what will you do to bring more administrative office buildings instead of big box warehouses and restaurants to the city of South Fulton?
Well, one of the things we talked about earlier, which I think is very true, we have to look at the change in the economy. You look at downtown Atlanta, and many of their office buildings, they're converting to housing, because after the pandemic, people didn't go back in those buildings. We have to be realistic, and we need to be able to adapt as a city. I think we need to look at more shared office spaces, co-work spaces, as well as flex spaces. Our city may not have those high-rise office buildings because the market may not demand that. So I think we have to be flexible. I think we need to look at more opportunities for small mom and pop businesses, whether it be a restaurant or, you know, a small law firm to go into spaces. So maybe we might be looking at more like office condos. I think we have to be flexible and look at the market is yielding. As it relates to that, I think it's really important that I say this because I hear a lot about what we're going to do. We are a city manager form of government. The way we get things done in our city, we meet with our city manager. We take our issues that get brought to us from constituents and we convey that to the city manager, and it is her job to make sure they get done. And I say that because, you know, I've just heard a lot about what I'm going to do. We have staff, that's their job. We have staff who are focused on economic development. It's our responsibility to cast the vision for what we want, and it's their job to implement.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question, and this is for Mr. Bennett. What's your opinion on the trash service for those on fixed incomes and rentals, and those that are renters?
I would like to see that our city have our own trash service, which we're moving toward now. You know, I like that. I just feel like it should have been done different. The approach should have been a little bit different. For instance, I probably would have created a customer service department and allowed the 6 providers that we had at the time to continue to work while we build on customer service and slowly start rolling them out and rolling in our trucks. I think when it comes to senior citizens and fixed incomes, you know, I think that, you know, more thought should have been put into it. You know, the consideration, like I said before, you know, fixed income is exactly that. And just because I'm making a few pennies more than you, you know, doesn't state that, you know, because the price is cheap, that you can afford it. So I just think moving forward, and that's not to belabor the point or beating on the council because they made the move that they made, you know, for sanitation services. But I just think moving forward, we should always think first of the least of us, because that's the point of government, you know, to look out for the least of us. You know, because those of us who are doing well, we're going to do well. But it's those who don't have much resources or income that we should always consider and try to find that balance. You know, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Ms. Bell. Share your proposal on a transportation plan to alleviate some of the traffic congestion throughout the entire city.
Thank you for that question. One One thing is working closely with MARTA, making sure that we have those sidewalks. We do have bicyclists that utilize the roadways, and so making sure that we provide a safer way for them to travel, making sure we have those sidewalks, making sure we not only have sidewalks in the Old National Corridor, but throughout our city, so that we can give those individuals an opportunity to travel safely. One other thing I would do is work with these small transportation companies, especially when you're traveling to and from career opportunities, job opportunities, wherever you're working. If we can create some type of carpool, share rides opportunities, that's within our city. In addition to that, I also propose widening some of these streets. One project they're actually working on currently is on Buffington Road, and I look forward to those roads being widening, because a lot of times you have certain situations with vehicles, you have stall outs, you have an accident, and it will completely cause congestion, especially within the Old National Corridor. We have a lot of businesses over there, and people need to be able to get to them, consume their goods and services, and be able to safely get out of them without any type of accidents or issues with congestion. We have a very highly populated city. We have several residents that reside in the city of South Fulton. So making sure that we have appropriate bus stops, making sure even with our bus stops that they're covered for different issues with the weather. So making sure that we expand our roads, making sure that we work with MARTA, making sure that we work with those small mom and pop transportation companies so that we can assist our seniors with getting to and from appointments. We can offer drop-off sections. I know other counties such as...
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to circle back because we're going to start to wrap up in just a few. But I want to ask Mr. Bennett a question. What policy do you feel, would you commit to serve a full term and not run for any other office until your term ends?
I commit to serve one term in office and not run for anything else. 66 years old. I'm not in this to start a new career. I'm in here because I feel there's a need that need to be filled. It's a void that need to be filled, and I think I'm the person to fill it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard from 4 of the candidates that are vying to run for these 2 council districts, 3 that are running for District 5, and 1 that is running for District 1. 2 are incumbents for District 5 and District 1. Those are incumbents that are here with us this evening. So you've heard their opinions on a number of different questions. I tried to just kind of mix it up and make sure that you heard varied opinions on some of the subjects that are hot topics. May not have hit all the hot topics, but we got quite a few hot topics. So I just wanted to say that. But before we leave this evening, I want to make sure that we give each of the candidates an opportunity to give a closing statement. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to share their closing statement and tell people why they should vote for you, how they can reach you, what you need from them, or whatever it is you think is most important to gain favor from these voters. So I'm going to, again, go in alpha order by last name, and we will start in Council District 1 with Councilwoman Rao.
Thank you for the opportunity. I've served on the city council since the inception of the city. And what I can tell you is I've demonstrated that not only do I know how to collaborate, but I know how to get results. We've had tremendous success in District 1. We've paved over 12 subdivisions. We have sidewalk projects actively going. I think my last count, we have about 16 new businesses over the course of the time that I've served in office. We have new commercial space. All you have to do is open your eyes. The results are there. I'm asking for your vote on November 7th. Please take advantage of the early voting period, which begins October 16th and runs through November 3rd. If you want to learn more about my platform and see me engaged in the community, you can check out my website at www.reelectralford1.com. And if you like to volunteer for the campaign, or if you like a campaign sign, you can sign up on the website as well. Again, I've demonstrated integrity, consistent professionalism, and even though we've had challenging times, I've showed that I can work across the board with the council members to get things done, not only for the city, but for the district. So I'm looking forward to serving another 4 years, but I can't do that without you going to the polls and casting that vote. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to move on to Ms. Bell.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you to the leader of the House. Thank you, Ms. Chapman, as well, and to the residents who are here with us as well as online. I am about change, being the change that we want to see in the city of South Fulton. We've given candidates and people several years to make those changes. And though I don't discredit the change that we have, we need more to move our city forwardly and progression. I am about integrity, accountability, and serving unapologetically. I believe in working and collaborating with others, other municipalities, other council members, but doing the job. It's writing the vision, taking the action, and making it plain and doing the work. I am altruistic, so I believe in giving and serving selflessly. I believe in being the voice for the voiceless. I believe in utilizing the experience and the skills that I have from criminal justice reform, working as a legal assistant, event planning and event management, and education, as well as workforce development, which I've worked in well over 20 and 25 years. I believe in being the change and really evoking change in our city and in our communities. I have been active in our community, and I love doing what I do to serve the people in the city of South Fulton. I need your vote. It's important that you exercise your right, but you also exercise your voices on November the 7th. Early voting begins on October the 16th. So get out. Allow your voices to be heard, because we need change. And I am encouraging you to vote for Keosha Bell for your next council person and councilwoman in District 5, being the change that we want to see in the South Fulton corridor of Old National, as well as all of our communities. Let's be the change and vote for Keosha Bell, November the 7th.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you for having us, Pastor Foster. Thank you for moderating, Ms. Adams. And thank you, Demeter, for putting this together. And thank you all for coming out. If I was coaching a basketball team tonight, I would have went to the locker room and said, you didn't do well tonight. You know, I felt I was off my game. You know, my thought process is off. I think it's from nervousness, because I haven't done this in such a long time, sitting in front of people and have to answer questions. So let me get that out the way. Beyond that, I want to say, I've been a resident for 25 years here in the city of in South Fulton. I've been committed to our community. I've been committed to this municipality becoming a city. I worked for it to become a city. I ran in the first election to represent. When I lost, I continue to be a part of moving this city forward. I am community-minded. I'm invested. And I can say that if you want somebody that doesn't have an ulterior motive, someone that has a material interest, a social interest, economic interest in the city of South Fulton, in District 5, that's Calvin Bennett. I came here tonight expecting to talk about District 5, you know, the problems we're having in that complex, Camelot, the problems that are starting to happen around Jerome Road, where the ladies of the night are starting to walk up and down the street because College Park is cleaning out their hotels, so they're starting to move down our way. I come to talk about the blight. I come to talk about Stacks Road, where we're still getting dumped on. I come to talk about some of the retention ponds in our subdivisions where people are still having issues with who's going to pay to get it fixed.
Thank you so much.
Quick 2 minutes, but thank you.
That's quite all right. Thank you. And then Councilman Reeves, you have 2 minutes to close out.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the gracious host of this church. Let me just say this. As we say, KB is keep believing. And keep believing in Reeves is because one of the things that we're going to do is continue to stay consistent. Consistency is the only thing that brings about change. And one of the things is we just now celebrating 3 years. It will be October, 3 years of a Monday night call that we engage with our community. Each and every single Monday night. I only missed one Monday night, but the call went on, and that's due to because my Bulldogs was winning the national championship, okay? So, as I just have to say that, but I was in surgery getting surgery, and we still had to call, as I am committed, because rain, sleet, hail, snow, as we are going to be committed to the constituency's issues every single week because something changes. We are engaged. You say you can't find me, go to district5mewe.org. That's district5mewe.org, and you will see everything that we are about, see that everything that we are doing, and see everything that we have done, and see the commitment to the process. Because 4 years ago, I wrote out a plan and mailed it and said, this is what I'm going to do. And by God, I tell you, we done did it. And so we have a bullet point and plus some, and plus we made world history. And that I will stand on, and that I will be proud of, and that I will continue to do. As even my two candidates, their initials are KB, even they keep believing in Reeves, and they want to keep believing in Reeves. And so we're going to keep this project going, and we're going to keep this moving as we go to the next level. And October the 16th, I need you to start voting for Corey A. Reeves, and we don't want to wait till November the 7th, but on that Super Tuesday, let's be super in our voices and our choice when you choose Corey A. Reeves. And I'm committed to the whole term.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to each of the candidates as well. But to our audience, to our listeners, thank you for attending this evening. I did get a few cards. It was a little late, and we're on time. I want to get everybody out here on time. And unfortunately, I won't be able to answer those questions. But if you have an opportunity to engage with the candidates on the way after the forum, I encourage you to do so. But let me just close this out, because I just want everyone to understand that these candidates' future is in your hands, and you have an opportunity to make a smart decision as you go to the polls. I want you to be an informed voter, and get out and go vote. But I want to leave you with some important dates. The last day to register to vote, and I hope everyone in here and online is a registered voter. But the last day to register to vote is October 10th if you want to participate in the 2023 elections. Early voting starts on October 16th. So early voting, it runs from October 16th to November 3rd, and that's voting in person. October 27th is the last day to submit an application for an absentee ballot. There are 2 Saturday voting dates. They're going to make this real convenient and real easy for you. So if you can't make it Monday through Friday, make an appointment with yourself and make time to go and cast a ballot on a Saturday. And that's October 21st and October 28th. Those are Saturday voting dates. Election day is November 7th. And should we have a runoff, that date would be December 5th. But we're going to ask that everyone cast a ballot and everyone go out and vote, and hopefully we won't have a runoff. But as we close out, again, I just wanted to say that you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, you owe it to your neighbors to help elect the next qualified public servant to serve as a leader in the city of South Fulton. This is a great city. We've all helped to build it. Whether you were on board or off board, it's here now. Help to elect a qualified candidate to serve as a leader in this great city. So I'm going to leave you with this closing. This is your call to action. Be an educated and informed voter. And know before you go. Know who is on the ballot. Know what is on the ballot, referendums or what have you. Know when to vote, and know where to vote. So pull up your information on myvoterpage.com and know which precinct you need to go to on Election Day. But exercise your right to vote. So I wanted to say thank you very much to all of the pastors that were engaged. We did want to engage the faith community. We are above the table and very transparent about hosting this opportunity to educate our guests and the residents, the constituents of the city of South Fulton. And more so than anything, thank you to Demita Chapman for pulling this together. I'm now going to turn the forum back over to Ms. Chapman to close this out.
First, I want to thank everyone for coming. I didn't see the mayor, but if he's here, thank you. Let me say this. I want to thank all the candidates that showed up today. We had one candidate that reached out to me, and I want to make it public, that she had another engagement, and that was Mrs. Dingle. And I appreciate her for giving me that notice. The other candidate I did not hear from. I am here not to endorse any candidate. I just want the citizens to hear from each one that has put their name on the roll to run for the city of South Fulton. City of South Fulton is great. I fought hard for it, and I believe in the city. We're 6 years old, and like I told at the interview forum, we just like a baby. We started out on Similac. Then we went on to breast milk. We ain't on whole milk yet. We ain't there yet. We're a baby. But again, I am not going to say I'm with any candidate. I want the right candidate to represent the city of South Fulton. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the elected officials. And again, I want to thank my husband for coming out tonight. I'm going to turn this back over to Pastor Foster. And he's been a great. And I told him the last time, someone that I had never met. Talked on the phone to him for over a year. You've been great. Thank you, Pastor Foster. And again, thanks, Pastor Christina Chavis. She was one of the ones that was the chaplain over the People's Campaign when we were fighting for cityhood. And she would pray with us every night. Now I find myself on the prayer line every morning. And again, I fret not. And so thank you, Pastor Foster.
Thank you again, brothers and sisters, for coming out. Those of you who decided to come and be with us in person, and also those of you who are online. This is our second forum, and we're glad to host it for you. Our commitment is to make absolutely sure that we hold true to our purpose statement. We are a church of the community, for the community. Thank you to all of these candidates. Good luck in your run for city council. To all those who made this possible, we bid you good night. God bless you, and have a wonderful evening.